Good morning, everyone. Today is Friday, May 8th, 2026. It is 9 a.m. I call this Governing Board Workshop meeting to order. Before we begin, I invite you to please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and rise if you can.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
I am happy to announce again that we have quorum of directors here. Before I begin, let me introduce myself. For those who don't know me, I'm Christine Novello. I'm a governing board director, and I am the governing board president for this fiscal year. We do have a quorum of directors here today. We have one director, Director Chatton, who is not here. I recommend that that absence be excused. Are there any concerns with that? Excellent. So I will go on and read our meeting procedures. The governing board and its committees conduct all their meetings in accordance with Arizona Planned Community Association open meeting laws per ARS 33-1804 and in concert with RCSCW bylaws, policies, and standing rules. Parliamentary procedures as outlined in the most recent edition of Robert's Rules of Order will also be followed in all meetings as appropriate, consistent with Bylaw 3.07, Procedures for Owner-Member Meetings, and Standing Rules number 2 and number 3. All that being said, I want to also point out that today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded. The live stream is being conducted via the Sun City West YouTube channel. So if you're online with us today, welcome. Please be aware that what you're hearing and seeing is delayed from what's actually occurring in the room. The amount of that delay can vary anywhere between a few seconds to a few minutes. Just please be aware what you're hearing and seeing is not actually the exact same timing. So when you're making comments online, we may miss a few of your comments in terms of timing. You see, when we take comments, we like comments to be made in accordance with our bylaws and with rules and so forth. We want our comments to be made on the topic that we're discussing at that point. So here's what we'll do. It was a good suggestion made by one of our residents after our last meeting. If you do have comments that are coming in via YouTube online, we will read those out and, if necessary, respond to those first. Then we'll go to comments here from people who are attending live, and we'll circle back to the YouTube comments and see if others have come in. It's the best way that we can try to address all of your comments. And the last note I have on 1.04 and meeting comments is, my fellow residents, we're all human. Humans make mistakes. If we do miss your comment, I assure you that as long as the comment's being made in accordance with our standing rules, in other words, courteous and so forth, it's inadvertent and it's a mistake. And humans do make mistakes. So thanks for bearing with us if we do make a mistake up here. Thanks for that. We're going to move on now to section 2 and our meeting minutes from our workshop meeting minutes of April 10th, our last workshop. Were there any comments, concerns? So consensus to approve is made. We'll move on now to the new business. And today, the crux of our new business is all about the budget. I think we all know that we've been having months of conversations about the budget in our committees, as well as here in our governing board meeting. We're here today not to take any votes. We're here today to prepare for a vote on the budget that by our bylaws must be made by the end of May. So our next meeting, our regular meeting on the 21st is when that vote is scheduled to occur. Today we prepare for that by basically establishing an agreement in principle, an agreement on what scenarios we are interested in exploring and whether or not we're ready to move forward to a vote on May 21st. So again, no votes today, just some agreements in principle. Before we get started with all of that, we have our CFO, Cliff Swan, who's joining us remotely. Cliff, are you there?
Yes, good morning,
Good morning.
Governing Board and community.
So Cliff's going to take us through a very brief overview of the budget summary. When I say brief, it's because it has been presented before here and in various committees. So, but it's very important that we understand the budget that's being presented. So Cliff, we're going to turn it to you first, and then we'll turn it to our treasurer for the recommendations from Budget and Finance. And operating budget too, I should also mention, I asked Cliff and all of us to be aware, we have two big questions here. One is the fiscal year 2027 budget, the budget for operating our beautiful community from July 1st of 2026 and onward. We'll talk about that first. And then the second topic we'll talk about separately is how we choose to fund or start planning ahead for any implementation of the master plan. So first, let's talk about operating budget. Cliff, take it away, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, President Novello, and want to get started here. First of all, in this budget, we've put together for fiscal year 26-27, there are approximately 20 strategic plan items that have been set forth and priorities assigned to those that strategic plan by the governing board to the general manager, and from there down to the operating staff. So, we've done a lot of work in this budget to make sure that we can accomplish those strategic plan items. So just a quick overview, when we put a budget together, we have all these services that we provide, a vast amount of services and amenities that we provide. We have two budgets to do that. We've got an operating budget and we got a capital budget, a capital improvement budget, and we have two funds that fund those budgets. So taking a look at the operating budget, there are some expense assumptions in this operating budget from last year to this budget, or this current year to next year's budget. And I'll just briefly highlight some of these. We've been talking about these for months and we've presented details on all of these. So just want to go high level, but starting with wages and benefits, implemented into this budget is a minimum wage increase, which will be established by the state of Arizona and will be implemented in January of next year. We've also put in a 3%, up to 3%, or a 3% increase on wages, where employees through the merit wage and the evaluation process could get up to a 3% increase. So we added that to next year's budget. There are 6 additional FTEs in this budget, which have been talked about, but these FTEs are really tied to those strategic priorities that we talked about earlier. And finally, on the wages and benefits side, we have our insurances will be going up, so we budgeted a 7% increase in those. Next slide, please. And then just overall, we have some increases. We have some equipment that we have to buy for golf clubs and also in the sports pavilion. There's some repairs and maintenance, or some paving projects that have to be done that are kind of driving up some expenses. We've also got on the legal and professional side, we've enlisted a lobbying firm to help us with some of those items that are impacting us at the state level. And then finally, we've got a nice decrease in the budget for those credit card fees that we're going to be able to pass on to people who still want to use their credit card to pay for their member dues and their annual golf cards. But at the same time, the advancements in our operating system and our POS systems are allowing us to give our members all other options to avoid that. So to basically, how are we going to raise the funds for these increased expense line items? Overall increase on the expense side of 3%. So how are we going to pay for those? To do that, we've proposed to the board to do a 3.7% increase, taking our dues from $597 to $620. On the golf rates, we're going to do a $7 public rate increase and a $2 guest rate increase during peak season. And then we're going to do a $1 increase to our members during peak season. And then on the golf card side, we've put a little increase in for the unlimited card and the Twilight card because those types of golfers do not pay greens fees. And then finally, we're going to the Lizard Acres has become very popular, and we feel like instating a 50-cent increase on beer in there will really go a long way with helping to pay for the additional FTEs and services that we're providing, service hours, and we're providing in the Lizard Acres. And then down in the capital section, APFs, we're proposing a increase of $200 to our APF. Just a reminder, these are the fees that people pay, the fee that people pay when they move into the community. It's a one-time fee, and it helps really fund our reserve fund, significantly fund our reserve fund. And then we put in 1,100 title transfers in there. And then in our estimated reserve fund allocation from our dues, there's an 8% reserve fund allocation from member dues this year. So overall, what that looks like in the operating budget, approximately 31.1 million in revenue and expense. We're going to generate approximately 1,296,000 from that reserve fund allocation, and then approximately 6.2 million in APFs. And with the reserve fund interest and dividends, we're anticipating 880,000. So overall, and the reserve fund inflow, so these are the cash inflows that help pay for our capital improvement projects. We'll have approximately 8,336,000 in this budget in cash inflows. So what do we use those inflows for? We use those to pay for our capital projects. And we spent a lot of time since really July last year putting that capital improvement budget together. The governing board made a recommendation to move on approximately 11,722,000 in capital improvement projects in this fiscal year 26-27 budget. All right, so what does that look like all across the board and for the next 5 years? As I said earlier, we're going to have 8,336,000 approximately in cash inflows. We've got that the 11.8 million in outflows in capital improvement projects, and that will generate a deficit or a decrease to our reserve fund by approximately 3.5 million. Now, the good thing is this year we're anticipating on having a positive reserve fund impact at approximately 4.7 million. So this is important because when you look at the increase decrease to reserve fund line item at the bottom of this table, you see that it goes up and down in various years, every other year. And those are the big irrigation projects that we have at our golf courses. So for example, in fiscal year 28-29, we'll be budgeting to perform the irrigation replacement at Pebblebrook Golf Course. And then of course in FY 26-27, that's Stardust. So you can see all the way down the line. Now, this model, it gives a good picture of what it's going to look like for us for the next 5 years. But you can see with the 4.7 million this year through the negative 5.1 million in 2030, 2031, our reserve fund is going to drop by approximately $5 million over that period in time. So what does that mean? What's the impact of that 5 million? How do we know that we're still in good shape in our reserve fund, even though our reserve fund, as you can see, is anticipated to be approximately 25.4 million in 2030, 2031? Well, we look at it compared to our fully funded balance. So our fully funded balance is the used portion of all of our assets. So we've got this year, we're going to be at 48%. And of course, when you see those big years where we have those negative cash flows, you can see that it takes a toll on that FFB percent. And you could argue that by year 2030, 31, we're really getting close to that 40% number that we have. keep in mind that this reserve fund funds not only the repair and replacement, but it also funds new capital projects. So 41% is pretty tight. Now, this is a conservative budget. And so, we hope that, over time that will increase. But we'll just have to see. But currently it's down to 41% in 2030, 2031. So overall, if you compare our proposed dues increases and APFs to surrounding communities, there's different dynamics within all of these communities. I put the number of rooftops you can see over to the left, right next to the community. So Sun City has 27,731. We have approximately 17,500. And the dues that are presented here at these other communities are per rooftop. So if you want to associate our due that's proposed to a rooftop amount, we have approximately 1.6 members per rooftop here that live in our community when you take the total population and divide the rooftops into that. So that would give you the rooftop amount. But you can see we are, for what you get and the amenities that you get here at Sun City West, we are in really good shape for the dues that you pay. All right, so that concludes the operating budget portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Cliff. Very helpful background. Again, something that I hope some of you here in the audience and online have seen this. It's been presented at our budget forums. It's been presented here at governing board meetings directly for at least the past 4 or 5 meetings. So we've had this already. It hasn't changed in terms of the proposal. So let's look to our Budget and Finance Committee. They've been analyzing this as well over the period of time, and that's what that committee does. So their recommendations were formulated on a variety of topics, including the operating budget. So I'll turn it to our Treasurer, Director Becknell, to give us a summary on what the Budget and Finance Committee's views are, as well as the Treasurer views.
Thank you, President Novello. So I sat down and made my notes, and I'm going to read this off so that I don't ramble on, but that I actually get my points across. Agree or disagree, over the past many months, I've had the opportunity to interact with many members of our community, as well as view many of the charter club meetings, including the golf committee. The questions I get most often, I've tried to summarize in this explanation. I have quotes from members of the B&F committee and owner members of Sun City West. I apologize in advance for not giving individuals credit for their comments or questions, but I've summarized my experiences. One of them was, explain the phrase protecting property values. Strong reserves and proper maintenance protect home values. Home buyers and real estate agents look closely at reserve funding, conditions of amenities, deferred maintenance, and special risk assessments. A financially healthy community helps homes sell faster, maintains stronger resale prices, and avoids the appearance of decline. From my friends in the real estate industry, they said every dollar invested in maintenance today helps preserve the value of every home tomorrow. Why avoid special assessments, I was asked. Owners usually prefer predictable increases over surprise bills. Small annual increases prevent massive emergency assessments later. Inflation in Arizona affects landscaping, insurance, utilities, and labor, delaying repair costs more in the long run. A member of the B&F committee stated a few weeks ago that a modest increase now avoids the toxic special assessment. We can call it something clever like catch-up funding or deficit funding, but at the end of the day, it's what my dad called robbing Peter to pay Paul. He preached to me growing up, budget first and then follow that budget. Why are Arizona costs rising so rapidly? These can be tied very easily to insurance premiums, water costs, pool maintenance, asphalt and concrete, landscape labor, and staffing. We cannot control the outside influences that affect our community. We do, however, have to recognize them and incorporate them into our planning. Why maintain amenities that seem totally acceptable to me? In 55-plus communities, amenities are often the community's identity. Several 55-plus magazines list the following amenities as decision factors for potential home buyers: pools, fitness centers, golf courses, clubhouses, pickleball courts, and landscaping. A homeowner that attended one of our Barry Dunn presentations last week said, "People moved here for the lifestyle. The budget and master plan need to protect that lifestyle." I was told transparency builds trust. Residents support budgets more when they feel informed. We have been informed and participated in the creation of these budgets and recommendations on the B&F committee. We had dozens of questions and comments that we worked through with the finance team on both the operating and capital budget. The board's responsibility is not to keep dues artificially low. It's to keep the community financially healthy and protect our amenities. That's all me and the words I hear in my head from many of the previous board members who sat in my chair for many years. Comments from the community or from the committee: planning ahead saves money. Preventive maintenance is cheaper than emergency repairs. Stable dues help avoid unstable finances. We are protecting both lifestyle and investment. This budget reflects today's actual operating costs. The goal is sustainability, not short-term savings. I was asked last week, can't we just cut some amenities? Amenities drive home values. Should we return to having no social halls available on Sundays? Should we close 2 of our 4 rec centers from May to September? Maybe we should eliminate a couple of golf courses. Reduced amenities hurt marketability. We already have many Gen X owner members who need these amenities because they are still working, and evenings and weekends are the only time they can enjoy our community, and we need to do more to bring them here to Sun City West. Some cuts create larger repair costs later. We evaluated the option of pushing out the golf course irrigation projects from the current 2-year model to a 3-year model. That one item would cost the community an extra $2.5 to $3 million. Some owners do not understand the term reserve funding. Simply put, reserve funding equals responsible leadership. Reserves are our savings account for roofs, parking lots, pool equipment, HVAC systems, irrigation systems, clubhouse repairs, and more. Our very own CFO, who spends every day looking at these numbers, said, well-funded reserves reduce financial risks for every homeowner. At the recent pop-up party that we just had, I had several residents ask me when I was going to fix the golf courses. They had seen several examples and gave me several examples of decline in our golf courses. This is caused by deferred maintenance, which creates visible downward spiral. Dead landscaping, cracked pavement, broken amenities, outdated facilities. The effects of these deferred maintenance are resident dissatisfaction, loss in home sales, reputation, and volunteer morale. Communities that defer maintenance eventually pay more to recover. From a discussion with a friend in Sun City who is experiencing this very issue, if you defer, you run the risk of having to demolish an entire asset and rebuild it, because otherwise you're just putting lipstick on a pig. There comes a point of no return. We don't want to hit that intersection. I was told Sun City West already has enough money. Operating funds and reserve funds are very separate. Reserve obligations and long-term expenses. Our fiduciary duties require responsible planning. Our policy requires us to maintain a minimum of a 40% fully funded balance, sometimes referred to as the FFB. Today, we are riding the rim of that threshold. These budgets keep us in the black and allow us to grow, not overnight, but over the next 5 years. Finally, from the Budget and Finance Committee this past week, This budget is designed to protect property values, preserve our community standards, maintain the amenities residents enjoy, and avoid costly surprises in the future. Responsible budgeting today protects our community tomorrow, and the Budget and Finance Committee has asked me to push this budget forward to the board for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. I appreciate representing the Budget and Finance Committee, and it sounds like, some of your own interpretations as well. Is very well put. So today, we need to focus on the facts before us and be as fact-based in our thoughts as possible. So Budget and Finance has put forward and said that the operating budget, we're talking just the fiscal year 27 operating budget beginning July 1st, that's in their view, and they've had all their questions answered. It's a responsible budget, and it's one they recommend. So before we get started, just a quick show of hands. Is there anybody here on the board that would agree, that would say this is a responsible budget and they're pleased? Okay. So we have 4 or 5 who would agree with the operating budget as it's currently been stated. So that you are all aware, residents as well, our bylaws require that we have at least 6 directors who would agree. And sometimes we call it the supermajority, but a regular majority of 9 would be 5, right? So we would need to ensure that we would have that support. So today we want to make sure that we identify if there are any concerns that would prevent us from having at least 6 of us to agree, that we identify where those concerns would be. So let's talk first, though, about why you support it. Ann just spent a number of minutes sharing not only budget and finance, but also, I believe, some of your views as well. And any other directors, those of you who raised your hands and said that you would be willing to support the budget as currently articulated with FTEs and so forth as proposed, tell us why. Anyone want to start? Alan, Director Schlemmer?
Thank you. Thank you, Ann, for your discussion and for the comments that you shared. So I'm gonna leave those as they are, because I think you echoed some of the same things I hear within the community. But what I do want to talk about is, I recognize that asking for an increase is a tough request. And like all of you, my wife and I live on our retirement income, Social Security, and our pension. You could almost call that fixed. I know Social Security goes up a little bit every year. At least, hopefully, we keep our fingers crossed. But my pension certainly doesn't. And so I get the challenges of having to come up with a little bit more money. And while a loan standing on its own, $20 is not a lot, I recognize that when you couple that with all of the skyrocketing gas prices and whatever, finances become a challenge. But at the same time, I also balance it with what brought me and my wife to Sun City West. We moved almost 3,000 miles to be here 10 years ago. And to be very candid, we really wanted a brand new home. And we looked at every brand new community out here. We also looked at Sun City, and we also looked at Sun City West, and may have been one other existing community that we went to. I can't remember now. But at the end of the day, what brought us here was the fact that what we saw here was a level of quality and a level of amenities that nobody else could provide. And I don't golf, but I drove by all those golf courses and said, doggone, they sure do look good. They make the community look nice. I don't play tennis, but I looked at that facility and said, man, if you were a tennis player, that would be awesome. And I don't play pickleball. And we were just in the throes here of building new pickleball courts and so forth. I'm thinking now, why did I move here? But just kidding. But at any rate, but I do swim, and I looked at the pools, and I was like, wow, to have 5 lap pools to choose from, it's amazing. My point in saying that is, we have, as a community, a competitive advantage. I've seen communities that didn't maintain and didn't keep up. You don't have to go very far. And I won't call out any of our neighboring communities by name. I'm involved with the museum and so forth, and I don't intend to be derogatory to one community over another. But I'm going to look more broadly. Go out to the 4 or 5 original Sun City communities. And you don't have to go, you're going to find some of them look like us. They've done a nice job. But there are a few, and I'm not going to talk about any here, that didn't maintain. And they don't compete anymore. Their home values have stayed stagnant. Their marketability is low. We don't want that to happen. When I look at this operating budget, and when I started getting involved in Torch and all of those things 4 or 5 years ago, one of the big mantras or rants that I was hearing in the community, and when I would come and sit at meetings out in the audience like many of you, I would hear, we don't have a strategic plan. We don't have a master plan. We were imploring our general manager at the time to get the ball rolling on a strategic plan and a master plan. Many of you sitting on this board today were involved in those discussions. We now have done that. We've brought in a general manager. His first task was to kick off the strategic planning and master planning process, particularly the master planning. And we're well in the roads of doing that. And that is identifying things that need to be done. And so in this operating budget, you see requests for some additional FTEs. I believe those requests are reasonable because I believe that those are the things that we need to do all of the things I just talked about to maintain this community. Do I like that I might have to pay $22 more a year? No, absolutely not. But at the same time, I sure am willing to pay an extra $1.50 a month, which is what that comes out to keep this community, the great community that brought us here 10 years ago. And I hope in another 10 or 15 years it will bring my daughter and her husband here as well, and many of your children and grandchildren as well. Our role as a board is to be fiscally responsible, but more important than that, it is to maintain and preserve and protect Sun City West. And that's why I support this budget as presented.
Thanks. Director Schlemmer, any other comments from directors? Okay, Director Turner. On the positive side of support, please.
Yes. I have some notes here, like Anne, just to prompt me so again I don't miss anything. I too don't like increasing dues by excessive amounts, but we've got a combination of factors at play here. Costs are rising. We're now operating extending hours, and we're having to deal with things like complaints about dirty bathrooms at the golf courses that involves extra expenses and so on to keep those clean. I don't like increasing headcount, but we've got a busier in Lizard Acres. We've got more lines of bowling, and we have those extended hours again. That takes people, and we're in the service business. The service business needs people. We can't replace a lot of our people, you can't replace with AI yet, certainly in those kinds of areas. It's a service business. And I can see more needs for staff in the future as fewer residents volunteer for board and admin positions within clubs and so on. If we're going to keep the activities going and we have fewer residents volunteering to run clubs, we're going to have to add staff to replace that administration and organizational effort that those volunteers currently do. So we're facing a future of higher service level, and that's going to have to cost us. The money has to come from somewhere. This budget, as currently drafted, allows the staff under the direction of the general manager, to continue working on the strategic plan priorities which the governing board told him to do. If we cut this budget, things that the governing board told the general manager to do may in fact not happen. So if this budget is cut in some way, this board is going to have to give a different set of priorities to the general manager. If dues are reduced as a result of any disagreement or inability of this board to pass this budget as it's currently passed, that's going to have an impact somewhere. where does that reduction in cost hit? Is it people? Is it opening hours? Is it money that goes into the reserve fund? Is it a reduction in expenses somewhere? You know, less replacement of broken items, fewer supplies. You know, we don't put as much fertilizer on or seed on the golf courses. Those have to, we have to think about where those cuts might have to come. There will be impacts somewhere. But I want to just focus on what is probably going to be one of the most likely outcomes, because everybody, the residents, will want the service levels to be maintained, which means there will be a lower operating surplus at the end of the year, which means that the amount going into the reserve fund will be reduced. And I'm going to ask Terry if you could put up Cliff's slides again, and the slide which shows the percentage of the fully funded balance. I just did a quick back of an envelope calculation, and if our reserve,
I'm joking.
if our reserve fund balance, if our reserve fund contribution goes down in financial year 26-27 by a couple of 100,000 below what's in this budget, then that 41% in 2030 drops down to 40 or 39%, which means if this budget is reduced in some way, we are going below policy and putting our reserve fund at risk in 2030 and 31. And what's going to be happening in 28, 29, 29, 30 and 30, 31, what's going to be happening is all those long-term plan items that our residents are getting very excited about, they're not really funded by this. This is just repair and replacement of the existing facilities. So we're going to have to raise even more money if we want to deliver on the long-term plan that our residents are excited about. Finally, just turning to our neighbours in Sun City, they didn't increase their annual dues by much or even by zero amounts for a period of 5 years. They're now in a situation where they don't have the reserve fund to do what they want to do. I saw one of their presentations online, and they estimate if they just simply kept increasing their annual dues in a straight line to where they are now, instead of having them flatline and then catch up, they'd have an extra $4 million in their reserve fund. Now, this is something that we need to think and consider, and we're talking about dollars per year. A handful of dollars per year is for our residents, but we have a lot of residents, and so the impacts are, in the long term, are huge. And it's our job as members of this governing board to make sure we have a secure financial future and that we are building and improving Sun City West for the long term. We're going to make it attractive to people who are going to be moving here in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And in order to do that, it's going to require change and it will require money. The money is going to have to come from somewhere. And so if we start by reducing the amount of money as of next financial year, we're only going to just have to pay more later. It means the long-term plan items are going to be delayed 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And we're setting up future governing boards to disappoint the residents. And I don't want to be a part of that.
Thank you, Director Turner. Thank you, Nick. One of the things that I did, since we have the slides up, if you back up one slide for us, Terry, you can see it's a small thing. It's not enough to really fund a lot of the very exciting things we're hearing about as potential master plan items. But Director Turner had said there really isn't a lot of money in there beyond repair and replace. You can see under new capital projects, there's a bit more. And our Cliff and the finance team has said that there is some money to use for the future. There is likely not enough to realize the true promise of some of the recommendations that the governing board will be hearing about over the summer and next year. But there is something there. I just wanted to point that out, to be fair. Okay, we've had a lot of discussions about things that were negative. Anyone else want to contribute on support for the proposed? I guess it would just be, Sandra, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I guess you guys sounded pretty good today. So I just have to say amen to all of it, you know, and I'm always about preparing for the future and not getting behind where you're existing and just trying to get somewhere. So I usually, if I don't attend the Budget and Finance, I watch it. I'm very impressed with the caliber of the people on the board there and with their backgrounds and education. I also have a lot of trust in them with their ability to analyze, to where, sure, I have gone through the budget, but I have not gone through it with a fine-tooth comb and spent hours and hours like they have. But I do esteem that committee, and I do trust that committee's opinion.
Thanks for that. And again, you can always opt out of these things, directors, as I call on you, but Director Williams Kay, you had your hand up as someone you would, that if I misunderstood, forgive me. Would you support the budget that's currently on the table, the operating side?
I will reluctantly support it. As the historian of the board, we've lived here 22 years. And in reflecting about the budget and what I've seen in 22 years, I am very proud to say that as I'm as happy to live here today as the day we made the move to move out here. We did a lot of looking. We've been in the area since 1978 in Phoenix. So I've seen a lot of changes. Why I don't like to see a raise for anybody, the reality is that's not possible. Prices go up. So I know a lot of work has gone into it. We've looked at a lot of it. We've talked a lot about it. So on that basis, I would support it. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Director Williams. Thanks, Kay. We have, and again, full transparency, there's nothing, no secrets, or I'm trying to keep no secrets beyond the ones that I'm obligated to keep confidential, of course, but coming out of all of the meetings that have been occurring in the past, 4 or 5 meetings or so, I've spoken with a number of my directors. I had a few personal challenges this week, so I didn't connect one-on-one with every single one of us, but most of us have spoken at least once one-on-one to try to understand some of the concerns that were also raised. So I know that there are concerns around maybe one or more of the FTEs. There are some other concerns as well. So it's not, for those who did not raise their hand in support, believe me, we'll get to those. We've had a lot of discussion about the things that we're concerned with, though. So I wanted to make sure we gave some time to folks who would support the budget. Now, I'm the facilitator. Sorry, Bonnie, I'm going to break the rule. I'm going to declare some of my own because I'm a director as well and a resident, and I've been here 10 years. So there are certain facts we have to face, and I think a number of the directors have already said that. I support this budget for all of those reasons, and I've always been thinking and working together with the governing boards of the past 3 years, frankly, shifting our focus to broaden it, if you will, in addition to our direct tactical oversight, also broadening this focus to include strategic planning and some of these things. It's going to take, it's not easy to change, and change can be both really great and also a little painful. And I think Director Schlemmer and Williams and I were around in the years where things were quite painful, and we were really pushing the general manager of the time to produce long-term plans, to show us some facts and figures. And I'm very grateful that the community and the governing board is in a position where we're starting to see some of that information. It really does help us make a fact-based decision. But the facts, tactical facts for this year too, are that when this budget was crafted, January, February of 2026, price of gas, I looked it up. Price of a gallon of regular gas was $2.98 at Fry's. I think we all know what it is now, and it's almost double that in some parts of the Phoenix area. That's way out of our control, but yet we're looking at the same budget proposal. It doesn't mean that there's any fluff there. To the contrary, I'm really concerned about sharpening our pencil on this, not because I'm opposed to it. I would, look at every small detail just like the rest of the directors have. And I've seen some things that I think we might be able, if all things were the same, I would probably be more inclined to looking at sharpening the pencil on even something small. But when I see that kind of thing, the kinds of things like prices that are out of control, these are things that are way outside of our ability to control as a governing board. And I think a number of us have said comes down to fiscal responsibility. And as fiduciary, my responsibility is to think about that. Do I wish, as one of us had said, I believe it was you, Alan, I don't want to pay anything. Who wants to pay more for anything these days? We all bristle at it. But the reality is, the facts are there that we do have rising prices that are outside of our control. I'm really grateful, though, that this board and our committees, plural, including Budget and Finance, have been looking really closely for any possible small opportunity. Some of these opportunities are not small. Some are larger than others. But again, a number of us who didn't raise our hands and that would support the budget as currently written have looked at those small things. So again, we're here to explore some of those as well. So we've talked about FTE reduction, right? They're currently, and by the way, we hear this term all the time, right? A full-time equivalent. It doesn't mean it's actually a full-time employee. It means it's the summarized equivalent. So when we have operating hours that are increasing for Sundays and so on, we're increasing staffing at Lizard Acres and so forth. You summarize the part-time hours up into FTE increases, I think, or a full-time equivalent, if you will, I'm sorry. But there is one full-time position that we've had some discussions about, and we've also discussed, or in past committee meetings, we've discussed what we would have to give up if that were to happen. Anyone want to talk pro or con about the full-time role in our marketing and public relations? We spent a lot of time talking about it, so I understand that there's some concern. Do we want to hear anything more about the impacts of that, both financially? Do we want to see what happens to our dues increase if we eliminated that position? Is that something that we want Cliff to come back and showcase to us as a board before we make our choice? I know, thank you, Jolene, for nodding, and I know we have a couple of directors who'd like to see that. But so we can get the financial impact of what that would cost. And Cliff, no back of the envelope here, but did you already look at that? And if we eliminated that role from a dues perspective, do you already have that? If not, no back of the envelope, just give us a precise, what would the budget, what would the dues impact be for next year?
Yeah, the position itself, it's it all in with benefits, taxes, and everything. It's about 58,000. So, in terms of what that would be in terms of a dues impact, the 1 year impact would be $2 approximately.
Okay. So the increase would go from $22 to $20, should we eliminate that position. And what a couple of us have alluded to is that there would be a direct, some impact to our strategic planning action items and our direction if we chose to do that. But quick, and again, not vote, but just a quick roll call or so forth. For the rest of the positions that are, as has been explained to me, these are full-time equivalents. They're additional hours that are adding services directly to our residents. Are there any, I support that, and I've heard from a number of directors, but for those who are concerned with FTE, in addition, any concerns about the remainder of that, or is it that one full-time equivalent at this point? For either Rudy or Jolene, I'm sorry, for Director Grum or for Director Peiskes?
The one time,
Right.
full-time.
Just the one full-timer
Right.
is the particular one?
I
Okay.
do want to just make one comment. In the summer months, we close down two golf courses. And I'm not saying that we need to close down our rec centers, but I think with all of the check-ins that we have and all the data we have, we would be able to support some of the hours to be cut down during the summertime, in the sense of if we find out that Palm Ridge is really busy from 6 to 4 and after 5 o'clock, no one really comes in. And we can then, I just think we need to think outside the box a little bit, especially in summertime, because we know a lot of our residents leave. It would be pretty easy for, I would imagine, Kyle or Katie or Dave to figure out what that impact would have on residents. And I'm not saying that we would close down all of them at 5 o'clock. You would have to rotate that, right? So Palm Ridge gets closed at 5, but everyone else is open till 9. And then it's just something that we need to see if we can cut down in the summertime, because we do have less residents. And we do it to the golf courses, because the golf courses have to be, they
need to be maintained,
They
not
need-
because we're trying to reduce service, but because they need to be
But they need to
maintained.
be maintained, but also because we cannot support 7 golf courses. That's what I believe in the summertime. Am I correct?
That is
I mean-
not correct. But we do it because they require maintenance, not because,
Oh, I was always under the impression that we closed them
Well,
down
perhaps-
for maintenance, but also because we keep the rest of the golf courses with a full tee sheet.
is that any truth to
Yeah.
that, remember?
No, that's not accurate. So I mean, if we were to have the ability to leave the golf courses open, that would just mean more revenue. I mean, the reality is that every time we close a golf course, that's a loss of revenue. So now, is it as much revenue as during the peak seasons? Of course not. But certainly is revenue that we lose, but because, and it's not just us, every golf course has to do
close
that.
down.
So but it's not because there's a reduction in members in the summer or some perceived drop in play. Its reality is we have to close them because of maintenance.
Yeah, and if anything, I think it would be, Jolene, it's something that we would have to really study. I don't know if we're prepared to do that so quickly, but it's some kind of, moving rec center hours, because first of all, all the data that we collected from our own survey much earlier in the year showed that we have more full-time residents now than, that number is really growing quite a bit. And for those of us who are here, whether it's and it is fewer people are staying here year-round, but for those who are here year-round, they really count on having these centers open for cooling, if for nothing, not just for activities, but just to go to a place. Our library is so full in the summer, even more so than during the year, but a lot of folks will go to the various rec centers where they can sit and actually have the benefit of cooling off, because it is so extreme. So I would be interested to gather more data for a potential on that than doing something quickly. That would be my suggestion. I applaud the fact that we're all trying to think out of the box here, but that one I think we need to be really cautious on as an individual.
Okay, and this is not, I just have a question for Cliff. It's kind of off the beaten path here, but in the rec news in May, in the proposed 26-27 proposed financial plan, under capital budget, under sports pavilion, you have $2.4 million. Do we know what that's for? Because I do not.
Yeah, it's it would be the pin setters.
No? I
It's
thought-
it's the total of the projects that were, I don't have the information, the data in front of me, so I can get back to you, but it's probably tied to that.
Is it in, I know we have we have the full budget that's attached online, and you don't have to pull it up now, Terry, but if it's in there, Cliff, if it's something that we could look at as a number and then sort of verify. There's
I thought she was
also,
talking, I thought she was talking about is it the budget you're talking about?
Yeah,
The
it's
proposed
Or the
on
financial.
Page 7,
Oh.
and it's under capital budget. It has recreation, golf, sports pavilion, administration, and under sports pavilion.
is it in the proposed budget or the current? I'm sorry to
Proposed.
interrupt you.
Proposed budget.
Proposed budget, thank you. I just wanted to,
So I just don't know. I thought the projected for 25-26 is the pin setters and everything. I just don't
Yeah.
know what the 2.4 is for sports pav, because we didn't talk about anything. All we talked about was a water heater and
Is it showing, you're saying it's showing for the budget 26-27?
correct?
in the printed rec center news version.
Oh, yeah,
So-
I'll have to look at it. I'm not sure. That could be an error. I don't know. I have to look at it.
If it is, thank you. If
Yeah.
it is an error,
Yeah.
'cause I'm not saying I'm hopeful that we had an error, but I'm hoping that that's an error, and I didn't see it, Jolene, to be honest, so it's worth calling out. If there's an error, it's something that we can certainly get out in email and social, and the team could retract and
And I
correct.
added them all up and it adds up to everything. So that whole column adds up to the 10. So I just didn't know what that 2.4 was for. Thank
So
you.
you'll get back to us on that one.
Yeah.
Take a
It
look at
sounds
what
like
was
the R
printed.
and R and the recreation, the recreation division, the R and R in the budget. But I don't know why it says sports pavilion.
So, yeah, please take a look at that, and again, if it's, I
Yeah,
don't have
maybe
my-
the numbers are flipped because recreation's only 241
oh, that,
and sports path is 2.4. So maybe the numbers are flipped, but
Yeah,
according to
sounds like
this,
it.
it looks like we're
Yeah, I'll
we're
take a
gonna
look
buy
at it.
bashes
Yeah.
for Gary. And get him another
the
30
full-
lanes that he can operate with.
at a great profit, I'm
He'd-
sure, right, but, yeah.
He'd
no,
be
good-
able to fill them up too.
I'm sure he will.
So we'll make sure we get that, and if there is a correction necessary, I'm sure that we can get that out. Okay, so we've talked a bit about FTE. Anything else in the current operating budget for Cliff from the directors right now? This is the current. This is the operating budget for the next fiscal year. So seeing nothing yet from the directors, do we have any comments yet from residents online? And now, those of you in the room, if you have. as
We
well.
do, but it's off topic and could be at the end.
Okay, so this is only for the current operating year, so please hold on to those. So anyone in the room have any comments or questions about the proposed operating budget? Okay, we do have a resident coming up.
Can I ask a quick question to Director Grom and Director Piakowski? Would that permissive on your?
Sure, we haven't. I
It'll
guess we're
take me
no-
2 seconds
All
just
right.
while he's.
Director comments are always,
I know last I heard too, and I appreciate the ideas of thinking out of the box and so forth, is the two of you were thinking that a good way to make a cut would be to not give any of the employees a 3% raise this year. Are you still on that page?
Well, at sometimes when you are employed and you don't have a good year, sometimes you don't always get the best raise you can get, right? Because they didn't have the best year. And so maybe, just maybe, next year we don't go to 3%, we just go to 2%. I mean, I understand our employees work very hard. Our management team is our management team, and they work very hard. Except for all of the front runners, all of the minimum wage people, that's all they get. And I understand that they get the minimum wage increase, but if you are a person that walks in as a monitor into Palm Ridge, I'm making $15.65 as January 1st, and the guy next to me that's been here for 5 or 6 years, they are still making $15.65. So my question is, why are we not giving some incentive for those people that are staying a little bit longer?
Well,
Okay,
I
and we
know.
talked about that.
we've talked about it in the past. They're still in a minimum wage job.
Correct.
And they would not be subject to the 3%.
I'm not
I know.
saying that. What I'm saying is that we have to give some kudos to the people that stick it out for 5 years and then stick it out for another 5 years to 10 years. We have a lot of employees that are here for a very long time, and do we not value their expertise in where their job is to train the people that are coming in? Do we not value that? I'm just asking.
I think that might be a question. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Do you have anything that you wanted to say about that, Stephen?
Listen,
We do
of
value,
course we
the
have-
board does, but tell us how we do that.
Yeah, obviously, we absolutely value all of our employees at all levels. And one thing I would point out is oftentimes, and Cliff, you could probably I know we've put this together, but there's been times in the past that the minimum wage has gone up more than the increase that was given to other employees. Now, that being said, the positions, I mean, you have to, anytime you're looking at when you're running an organization, you have to separate people from positions. The positions that we're talking about that are minimum and minimum plus one, that means minimum plus $1, they're being paid at the value of that position, just the same as every other position is being paid at the value of that position. And certainly, you know, we've looked at ways, and we're just continuing to look at ways, and that's one of the strategic priorities, is ways to further engage our employees. And we've done a lot, actually. There's been a lot of things that we've done recently, even including additional recognition. We have our kudos that we do, and we value those employees. We acknowledge their work, talk about at all levels. And I'm proud of the work that we've done so far to make sure that our employees feel valued. And the reality it comes down to, though, anybody that's in a minimum wage position, that position is being paid at the rate that the position is valued at. And that's the same as any position. Now, I certainly encourage anyone who's in those positions, if they are looking to increase their pay, we have opportunities in the organization to do that. And I would welcome anybody. In fact, I always have this conversation. I love coaching and mentoring people. I don't care what age they are. And if they have a desire to move up in the organization, I'm happy to help anybody to talk about what that looks like for them and what we can do to further that. And one of the things that's in this budget as well that I made very clear that was important to me with all the managers as they reviewed their operating budgets was, what do they have in there for employee development? Because I don't think in the past we've put enough money towards employee development, and that we've made that a priority this year in this budget to make sure that folks, that the managers have the money to be able to provide employee development dollars to the employees. So again, there's opportunities for folks that want to increase their position and move within the organization. They can absolutely do that. If somebody is in a position and it's a minimum wage position, they've been there for 5 years, thank you. I appreciate the work that they do. I honestly do, because they are the frontline folks that are taking care of our members and doing the work out there in the front. And I hope that they stay. And I would hope that they're staying because they value the culture of the organization. I think we have an amazing culture, and I look at how ways that we can continue to make sure that folks feel valued in those positions. If someone doesn't feel valued, I'm sorry for that, and I would be more than welcome them to come and speak with me about what I can do more to help them feel more valued. But the position is the position. So again, separating the people from the positions and the value of those positions is important to keep in mind. That doesn't mean if I could wave my magic wand, I would pay all of them a lot more money. But that obviously isn't an option for us. So I hope that sort of at least provides some input.
At least, and again, Director Piaskowski, I'm not discounting your input. It's been responded to. You've been very consistent for not just this year, but other years as well, looking for and recommending that we somehow recognize our long-term minimum wage employees. That's the response that we have at this time. But thank you.
Yes, sorry,
go ahead.
Excuse me.
I'm
Can I
looking
just
up.
add one thing? Yeah. You know, we do our employee recognition every year, and it doesn't discriminate with what your job class is when we do our employee recognition. So all of our 5-year employees, regardless if you're minimum wage or you're salaried or you're full-time, they all get recognized on their 5-year every 5 years. In addition to that, we also do special recognition for employees, and our employee of the year last year was a minimum wage employee for the whole organization. All 490 positions was a minimum wage employee. So we recognize a minimum wage employee just like we do all other employees.
I think recognition is wonderful. I think cash in the pocket might be what the question was, but we understand. And thank you for sharing that with us and helping us understand how we recognize and compensate everyone. Yes, but before we go, Alan, that was your question initially, Director Forsey. Yeah, I know, thank you. First names are much easier. So Sandra, that was your question. Did I miss anything else you needed, or before we move on?
Mine was 2 seconds is, you know, with a corporation, which Sun City West is, our employees are some of the most important cogs that we have in this overall development. And I would very much hesitate. 3% is kind of a minuscule raise as it is, but that would be one of the last things I would ever look at.
All right, thank you. And any other online comments come in on the topic? And so thank you for waiting patiently. Sarah, please introduce yourself. We have resident comments now. Name and rec card number, please. Thank you.
Gary Shimoleski, 120, 865. First question is for Cliff on that slide that showed our income for revenue from our reserve fund. It was just up there a little while ago. Can you show that slide again? Somehow, yeah, that's the one. Cliff, how come, what's going on that you know about right there in the next year? Are we missing a 1 on the investment return? We got 2 million, 1.8, 1.8, and next year you guys are only looking at 800? What is the reason behind that? I'm confused.
That's a good question. So when we put together our modeling, we do model investment return in terms of valuation, investment valuation. So that's the realized and unrealized gains and losses. When we model forward, we do that. And obviously in the current year, we're showing we've had a very good year in the stock market and in the equities. So we're showing a higher valuation change in the current year. But when we put a budget together, we do not budget for valuation changes. We just budget for investment income. And so based on what our reserve fund is anticipated to be, we anticipate that we'll generate 880,000 in investment income, which will get reinvested into the reserve fund itself. But we do not budget valuation change, and that's why you'll see the difference in those dollar amounts.
Out of $33 million, $35 million, you're only looking at less than 3% return on our investments next year.
Yes.
Ah.
And interest and dividends.
Okay. I guess I could put my money in the Vanguard money market fund and get more than that, but all right. My second reason for coming up here is do we understand, everybody seems so sensitive about their price increase here. I've been here an owner for 30 years. Okay, my first rec number was like 50632 or something like that. And this place is wonderful, and it still is very wonderful, and I'm always impressed with the board members. So thank you all for what you've done. But, you know, do we understand the demographics of who's living here and the demographics of who's moving in and should be moving in here? Because it's my opinion, we're looking at strong middle class to upper class people. Okay, and in order to bring people in here, we're going to have to maintain our community, like I heard a lot of you agree to. So it's just a comment that it kind of blows my mind a little bit. We seem to be defending $22, which seems so petty to me for what we're getting out of these on this community, and considering the demographics here. Now, along with Kay's comment, I do agree there are people that, you know, got stuck with inflation that were here a long time ago, and then it caught up with them, you know, but what percentage of those people are there? My time's up. Anyway, Kay, I contribute $490 every year to the community fund to help the people that, you know, aren't here. I have been here for a long time and got it tough, but as far as our budget goes, you know, please protect the nice community we got, because you got upper middle class people coming here, and $600 is, I'm sorry, not much. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And fortunately, we do have a lot of data about the demographics, and that is a factor. As I mentioned, the reality is there is some sensitivity amongst the decision makers here. That's why you're here, to help us understand your point of view, and we're looking at everything very carefully. There's sensitivity about every dollar that we would be adding to the dues. So yes, we take this decision very seriously. We've spent hundreds of hours analyzing it. But again, thank you very much. And the reality is we need 6 of us to agree on that value, and we're just working through the nuances of getting there. Any other comments in the room on the operating budget? Could you come to the microphone? And this is just on the operating budget, and then we'll move on to long-term funding.
My name is Don Heeman, 110853. I bought down here in 2008 because of the marketing that you guys had on your website. I read it for 3 hours, everything. I came down here, I wanted to see it for myself. I came down here a second time and bought, 2008. My comment, I have a couple of comments. One is the marketing brings people awareness. I don't think we should cut that from our budget. I think it's very important as we go forward. We're rated about number 6 out of the top 10 in the country. I'd like to see us get back up to number 4 like we were a little while ago. The other thing is, I'm on that budget committee, and believe me, we worked our tails off on this stuff. We don't like increases any more than anybody else does, but we have a reality that we have to face. I've had 40 years in accounting and finance, running businesses. Believe me, this is about as tight a budget you'll ever find. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And thanks also, not only to all of you who are here today, and to the Budget and Finance Committee, and to all of our committees who've spent a lot of time analyzing this and all components. So we do thank you for that. All of our committee members as well. I believe I saw Alan's hand raised. So directors, any other comments? I know, oh, you didn't? Anyone else? Director Graham.
Yeah, this is kind of in response to Director Forsey's question. At one point, I saw as part of this budget, we were using the revised 2026 pay scale. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's in the budget packet.
Right, okay. So,
Because that's the current pay scale, so that's what we're
okay,
approving.
that's where my heartburn comes. That is a change then from last year. And we never approved.
We did. Last year, the budget did approve based on the pay scales of last year. So you can go through, as we've discussed in the past. It's there in last year's overall budget discussions. It was not explicitly in the packet. It was one of the other attachments. So this year, Cliff was kind enough to include that explicitly in the packet, so it's easier for you and any resident to find and track that.
So by the fact that it is in the packet, if we approve the budget, we're approving that pay scale.
The pay scale is currently, Jolene, if you could let me speak first, and then if you have a comment, you're welcome. The pay scale is currently in effect, so that pay scale is funded to continue, that if we approve the budget as it is. And we're also funding a potential salary increase for salaried employees up to 3%. So that's included in that line item.
No, that
we
didn't
have.
answer my question. You're saying we used the 26 scale to develop this budget, but we never approved the 26 scale.
We did, Rudy, I'm sorry, Director Graham, we directed our general manager to conduct a pay study and to implement that pay study. So by that direction that we made last year, we did approve the implementation.
Okay, I won't agree with that, but that's fine. The other issue.
Our legal counsel weighed in on this and agrees that it would stand scrutiny.
Okay, the one thing that everyone has, to me, failed to talk about is when you analyze budgets, you have to look at the variances of your past budgets to see the integrity of your budget, your current budget. This is more a question there for our general manager. If we approve next year's budget, are we going to be able to fully execute it insofar as this year, at the end of March, we already are $800,000 under with our actual expenses compared to budgeted, which tells me when we budget, that's the amount of money then we need from our residents to cover those expenses, but our actual expenses are not as much as we budgeted. So we're actually taking money out of people's pockets and not using it. Right now, we've got 19 open positions, 11 of which are on our golf courses. So are we going to be able to do a better job in hiring people next year if we fund those positions? We are not, at the end of the year, a beautiful goal at the end of the year would be having revenue and expenses match each other. I don't think it's our goal to have excess revenue at the end of the year because that comes at the expense of our residents.
Thank you, Director Grom. So, listen, I would take exception to the term "a better job." I think our HR department has done a phenomenal job of trying to recruit folks and to bring them into the organization. We would love to not have any open positions. I would love to see every position filled that we budget for, because we budget for folks that we need, positions we need. So the fact that we're not able to get people is not a byproduct of anything that we're doing. In fact, again, we've done a lot of things. So the majority of our challenges tend to be in those areas, particularly in golf, when you have open golf maintenance, greenskeeper type positions. That is not unique to us. That is a challenge in every golf course. Frankly, it's been a challenge in even my past career. I can tell you that Parks and Recreation maintenance people, any outdoor maintenance field type people are always a challenge to fill. Part of the challenge that comes with that is because you have a position, you fill it, and they are constantly, people in those positions are constantly chasing the dollar. So if they see they can make $1 more somewhere else, they're going to go over there. And if they see they can make $1 more somewhere else, they're going to go over there. So, you know, we're looking at ways that we can try to combat that, but the reality is you can only do so much. And trying to get people through the door to fill those positions, like I said, I would love to be able to get that to happen, but that's not what is always able to happen. The other part of that question is when you're talking about a budget, yes, in an ideal world, your expenses and your what you're budgeting for would come out actually equal, but that's obviously not realistic. You always want to have put together a realistic budget, and I think that we put together, frankly, I'm hugely proud of this, and I made this comment at Budget and Finance, hugely proud of this budget because it not only increases service levels, it meets all the governing board objectives in the strategic plan for this current fiscal year and next fiscal year, and increases the amount of events and things. I mean, and it does it on a moderate increase. And you know, the fact that there's excess at the end of the year is not just attributable to the fact that we have open positions that we struggle to fill sometimes, but it's attributable to the fact that we work really, really hard to be very conscious and be very good stewards of the members' dues. So the fact that we budget what we think it's going to be, and then we are able to buy things or do projects or do other things at the end of the year that end up with an excess amount is a huge positive. And frankly, there's no benefit to us. I mean, as far as as an employee or anything. I mean, that money goes right back into the reserve fund, which is a benefit to the community. So you know, I would love to be able to hit exactly target dollar in the budget, but that's just not the way it works. But hopefully that answers some of that question. But I don't know, Cliff, if you wanted to add anything into that as well.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I would add is the excess that comes through the operating budget reduces future years' dues. Because think, last year we had 800. And if we didn't have that 800,000 in our reserve fund by 2030-31, our FFB percent would fall down to exactly 40%. So we would be recommending a higher dues increase to inject more money into the reserve fund. And I put in a previous meeting, I put together a table showing the allocation to the reserve fund from operations for the last 10 years. The average allocation for the last 10 years has been approximately $2 million per year. We're budgeting next year to put 1.3 million in, or 1,296,000, on a balanced budget. That's what we need to go into the reserve fund. If we do get excess, either in the form of golf rounds, bowling lineage, APFs on the APF side down at the bottom, if there's extra that goes into the reserve fund, that helps future years' dues. To take that 800 grand and want to allocate that into the operating budget for the following year, it wouldn't help dues, and you'd be increasing the dues that you'd be requesting in the budgeting process. So, and this idea or this process that we have now to do the reserve fund allocation to put together a balanced budget, that's only been in the place for the last 3 years. And every year prior to that, the association budgeted excess to the tune of $1.5 million to 2 million per year to put into the reserve fund, and it was down in the cash over under line item which is now zero when we budget, but we used to be budgeted down there.
Now we're explicitly calling that out, so that it's more transparent I
Yes.
want to say it's been in that line item has been in every line item that I've seen during my tenure. So maybe it was around fiscal year 23, maybe fiscal year 22, that change to the way we report it was implemented. But anyway, Director
Yes,
Grom,
fiscal year 23.
Director Grom, you may not agree, but did it start to answer the questions you're posing, or do you have follow-ups?
Yeah, to some degree, my questions are answered, and Mr. Erno, I appreciate your challenges. You know what they are. I just think we need to hear from you that we need to raise certain salaries in order to retain these people, and I don't think we've heard that this year. I really don't. And if we're approving this 26 pay scale, that doesn't reflect increased wages for people in these critical billets that we really need, because the condition of our golf courses, if we don't maintain them properly or in good condition, then there is nothing to advertise. Then we can't advertise them. And I'm just concerned that we're not executing the budget as well as we could, because and I understand your dilemma with having the fact that it's difficult to hire these people. That, unfortunately, is your job. And I just think that I'm very afraid. I'm looking right now at the end of 9 months, we have a $800,000 variance between actual and budgeted expenses. And I don't want to be sitting here next year in the same place saying we raise dues and we even have more excess money at the end of the year. I just don't want that to happen. Thank you.
Go ahead, Stephen. Did you have a
Yeah,
response?
I just wanted to follow up with that, just so you understand. So when we did our compensation study, those positions are at market. So they're up there, they're where they need to be. So in other words, so when we did our compensation study, the overall target for the organization was the 50th percentile. But those positions, because they are hard to fill, are at market, which means they're being paid what the market is saying they should be paid at. So the reality is that if you were to take those positions and say, I've heard even at golf, double the salary. Well, if you're to double the salary, guess what that does? It creates compression. You create that compression, that means you need to increase the entire pay scale. When you increase the bottom, you got to increase it up. You can't have somebody who's in golf maintenance making more than somebody who's in a position that is of a different of a caliber, that it requires more education, training, knowledge, skills, and abilities. So when we did the compensation study, that was one of the things we looked at, is for those hard to fill positions, making sure that those were put at a wage that is highly competitive. I mean, it's at the market. So the fact that we can't fill them is really just a byproduct of society today. I'm sorry, it is. The reality is people don't like to go into those entry-level, hardworking positions. The other challenge with some of those golf maintenance positions, we absolutely require E-Verify. And there are employers out there that do not require E-Verify. So it is a challenge for us because now you've taken the pool of potential employees that could come in and you've shrank that. There are definitely places out there that will hire that are not E-Verified. We don't do that. We're not going to put this association at risk and do that. So one of the things we're working on right now is for the entire organization is a total compensation letter, so that to give them a overview of their total compensation package. Oftentimes employees forget that they have their hourly rate, especially at the line level, they'll have their hourly rate, and that's all they look at is their hourly rate. When the reality is when you factor in all the other benefits, the paid time off, the sick leave, the vacation leave, the medical benefits, the 401k, all of those are the total compensation of what they're receiving. And what we hope to do is to use that to entice folks, to make them understand that it's not just about their hourly wage. Now, but the reality is, in those positions, oftentimes those things aren't particularly of interest to them. They are only focused on their hourly wage. But we are looking at ways, and one of the things I just literally yesterday had a conversation with the HR director about was having conversations with our current golf maintenance folks and find out from them directly, why do you think folks are leaving? Why do you think that they're going somewhere else? Why are you staying? You know, and is there ways to have conversations to try to, from the inside out, figure out ways to entice people? Whether that's going to work or not, I don't know. But I guess I just want to make it really clear that those positions are at market and they're being paid what they're supposed to be paid, and it's still not attracting the folks. I mean, we get them, but we gain one, we lose two. You know, I mean, it's this constant revolving door of you get somebody in, somebody else leaves. I mean, it isn't as though there's just stagnant positions that aren't being filled either. That's the other thing that I think folks tend to not realize.
Thank you, Stephen. For what it's worth, I think, sitting down with the folks and understanding why are they staying, as well as why do they think people are leaving, I think that would be really excellent insight and a great place to start. If we're already paying at market rates, maybe it's more than pay, maybe there's something else, we don't know. But I think what you're hearing from Director Grom and what we're all hearing from residents is that we know it's a pain point. So we look forward to hearing more about that as you guys move forward. So that being said, we'll go back to online comments. So if you could read them just resident by resident, I think if there's more than.
Actually, this is from the same resident.
Okay.
It just was
Group
continued.
it all together, that would be
Yes.
great.
This is from Mary Gannett. Staffing is most of our budget. We need an outside firm to do a forensic study to see who's being overpaid and who's being underpaid and who has the credentials for their positions, etc. The study done by HR that increased their own salary ranges should not have been done internally by those whose salaries were affected. This needs to be done by an outside firm. 3%, to increase their salaries 3% and should invest more into our hourly people. I worked for the rec centers for over 5 years. She's still writing. I mean, let's see here. Let me come back here. Okay,
I'll give you a few minutes, that's okay.
it just keeps scrolling up. But I worked for the rec center for 5 years. Other than what the state required, there was never an increase or a thank you at my 5-year mark. I like to work, so that wasn't why I was there, but we'll say there was no incentive to stay. I feel you are doing a disservice to the hourly staff. People will work if the salary is competitive, including gold maintenance people. She must be golf maintenance people.
Okay. Well, and if there's more that comes in, we'll read those. Let's unpack a few of those comments. First, we'll talk about the compensation study itself. So one of the things that this has come up, and we're well aware that there's concerns. There are concerns within the board as well as across the community. We understand. Back on, I believe it's March 13th, my date recollection may be a little off, but it was our workshop meeting here at the governing board. We had a resident come in and present an extensive concern, and he submitted a written letter and has continued to write the same letter into the Independent several times as well. So we're aware. And and asked for us to, we decided to reflect that in the minutes along with a response. So there is a very detailed response to the concern, but in summary, on the compensation study, we're satisfied at this point, as a board, that that what we've heard, that the implementation occurred as we directed and as we expected. We have 2 data points, just so that you, and I missed this when I was responding to you, Director Grom, my apologies, but in addition to getting some weigh-in from legal counsel, we also work with our audit firm. They audit our financial processes. So what I'm mentioning here in terms of approvals occurred as a part of the budgeting process. So that's within the purview of the CLA, the independent auditing firm that does review processes on an annual basis. And if there was a gap in terms of governing board approving those salary ranges last year, they would have found it, and it would have reflected in the findings. There were no findings in the fiscal year 25 audit, nor any audit recently. So the governing board has been following that process for this year. In fiscal year 2026, they will review the entire process, including how the compensation study was implemented. Not at the level of her forensic audit, as our resident has asked for, but rather at an overall view to say, were the processes followed? Is the documentation there? And we can expect as a community and as a governing board to hear the outcomes of that overview of process as a part of the financial audit that will be conducted starting in August on our fiscal year that's wrapping up at the end of June. If there are audit findings or concerns, the governing board will have it in their opportunity then to conduct the audit that you were just recommending. The governing board will take that up following the completion of the audit. At this point, to fund for that would be expensive. So we're going to wait for the process to be followed first, and then the governing board will take that under advisement. That was a long answer, but that's the compensation study. As for heard your concerns about how you were treated and compensated and acknowledged as an hourly employee. And we heard something a little different from the general manager. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add, Stephen, in terms of the recognition of our minimum wage employees on their 5-year anniversaries and such. So you'll stand by what you've already responded. So thanks for that. Were there any other, I know that resident was still typing at the time you were reading. So that got caught up. Are we seeing any other comments that we may have missed online from anyone who's watching on there? Yes, Director Turner.
Just in case anybody's wondering, page 11 of the strategic plan instructs the general manager to conduct a wage survey and implement a structured compensation plan, and that was due for delivery this financial year.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. So seeing no further comments from our residents on the operating budget, governing board directors, can we move on to 3.02 and talk about master plan? Excellent. So thank you again, directors, for your candid comments. I can't stress enough to those of you who are here and watching online how difficult it can be to balance personal views with the best interests of the association at large, and to do so on camera and in front of you. So I thank you guys for doing that for months and months and months. Let's move on now. Let's talk about the master plan, and there are lots of options for that. And again, we've been hearing about this over the years, and it was in our Rec Center News. We'll turn it back to you, Cliff. I think there are a couple more pages in this presentation to summarize.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to put a slide up here and just talk about why and what our sources of funding would be, and what we have to essentially plan for and how we plan for that. So, but the reason we're planning for this master plan funding is that we know that if we're going to be doing different things, potentially, providing different amenities, potentially, we have to take a look at our budget and our modeling and see, well, what type of funds do we have available in the modeling, and then is it reasonable to think that there's not enough funds in the modeling to take care of all of the things that may come out of master plan. So I think it's reasonable to think that there aren't enough funds in our current modeling, because we model about 1.4 million a year, but that really is not going to be enough over the next 5 years, potentially, um, to handle a master plan scenario. So the board and the BNF committee asked the BNF committee and asked us to come up with some scenarios for this budget cycle that would help fund master plan, and what could we do to start funding for it. So that said, we did a various modeling and presented that. And when we did what we used to do that is, there are certain sources of funding that we have. We've got member dues, we've got APF fees, we have our existing reserve funds and the modeling that we currently have, as well as the ability to go to the community for a vote on a special assessment. But when we're considering all of these funding sources, we've got to look at our long-term reserve study, look at our operating budgets and our capital budgets, and assess the risk that we're putting on those. Because what we don't want to do is fund a project that that would take funds away from the repair and replacement of the amenities that we currently have. So next slide, please. So we looked at various scenarios, and I'm just presenting today the Budget and Finance Committee, of all the scenarios that were presented, approved or recommended this type of funding. And I want to stress that this is a one-year proposition. Now, the model goes for 5 years and raises an additional $6 million in capital if we kept it in place. But it's a one-year proposition because the governing board votes on these fees on a yearly basis. So I want to keep that at the forefront. But if we were to raise $6 million in additional master plan capital, how could we do that? Well, without going to a special assessment. Well, we have got two levers that we can pull that are really, these two levers are really what it's all about when it comes to funding amenities in the community. And it's our member dues and our APFs. And so we put a model together that said, how much could we fund? How much would we need to fund over a 5-year period? And if we kept that model in place, by the end of that 5 years, we would have enough capital for an additional $6 million in reserve funding, and for new master plan projects. So you take the $6 million, you take the $1.4 million a year, and then there's some reserve study items in there, and it's a significant number. I mean, it's not a huge number, but it's over 15 million. In additional funds that could be applied to master plan. And so it's pretty exciting. It's actually very exciting. And the way we could do that is we've modeled out basically it's $100 investment per member over a 5-year period. So it's $20 a year additional that we'll collect. In addition to the normal dues that we collect, we'll collect an additional $20 per member over a 5-year period, as well as increasing our APFs from this proposed budget of 5,600, increasing those an additional 300 to basically tell the new members moving into our community, yes, you're getting everything that we have currently, but we're also giving these new things, and we're going to request you to buy into that as well, which will be an additional an additional $300, excuse me, in funding. So if we did those two things, we could raise approximately 4.2 million in additional revenue, and our reserve fund could cover the additional 1.8 million. So that would cover that's the total 6 million. So it's pretty exciting. It keeps our fully funded balance at 40%. It keeps our reserve and our modeling in place, and our reserve study items, our irrigation projects, all the things that were currently modeled in this budget. It keeps everything status quo and raises enough money to add another 6 million in master plan funds. Next slide, please. So, one of our owner members came up to the microphone and referenced this. Number 6 right now, it's still pretty impressive. I mean, in the top 10 for Retire Better Now or 55 plus communities. You can see there's some really newer communities newer than us in this top 10, and we still stay, in that area. And if we're going to continue to be in this top 10, it's gonna take master planning to do that. And so that's the scenario that we've got recommended from the BNF committee.
Thanks, Cliff. And you summarized that. Anything, Ann, I believe, Director Becknell, excuse me, you'd already provided some comments, and you can see here that Cliff has already given or overview. Anything else you wanted to add from a Budget and Finance Committee perspective on the master plan funding?
No, I will reiterate what Cliff said, that this budget that we're approving is a one-year commitment, and that each year we'll have to re-up for that same model. So I've heard some people say, well, let's not start saving any money for the master plan until we know exactly what the master plan is going to be. That, and the Budget and Finance Committee's opinion, is the wrong answer. We need to start saving now. When it comes into next January, February, if we look at that and we reevaluate this budget model and say, we can change that, we can reduce it, we can do whatever, I think it's important to know that that's possible. So we're not asking this committee to approve a 5-year budget. We're asking you to approve this budget for the next year, and then we will reevaluate it again next spring and vote to do it, continue it, or modify it in some fashion.
Yeah, thank you. And I had said about the operating budget, it's we have to look at some facts, right? The facts here are that, as you said, Ann, we don't know what the master plan analysis is going to entail. The governing board will see all of that by next fall, and full analysis and recommendations, but it's the governing board that will then decide what the priorities are for implementation. So we don't have that. That is a fact. We don't know what those recommendations are going to be or the outcomes fully from our master plan. But the facts are our consulting company is a national company. They're not small, they're not local. They said that our engagement, our community's involvement in the master plan, our excitement, our collective excitement about the master plan is so far beyond anything they have ever seen in any community of any size, any construct. They just keep stressing this over and over again. We are, as a community, very excited. Now, as Director Becknell alluded, we're not going to say that every single 100% of our residents are thrilled with the idea of change or spending money. There are some who worry about that. And so I'm not going to say that it's unanimous here, but again, there's a lot of excitement, and that's a fact. We also know, choose your analogy. I've made many of them, but choose your analogy. We know if we were buying a house and we were, it's your first house and so forth, and we know that we're going to be moving into that house or making the purchase coming up, you start saving for that purchase. We know we've committed. We have this master plan study acting, and we know we've committed as a governing board that we will implement it in some way, shape, and form. These are facts. And we know that we're writing a check. We, the governing board, will be writing a check in May of 2027. Those are facts. So do we want to wait until May of 2027 to start saving extra money for that? That's the question at hand. And again, a million analogies about it. No one's necessarily right or wrong, but as I see it, and when we look at the facts, we just have to recognize that we do have this master plan initiative. We will implement it in some way. The governing board has not decided how and what those priorities will be. So the question is, do we start putting aside extra money. There is some money, Cliff alluded to it, and I did too, and you saw it in the presentation. There is some extra money for additional capital. That's already, if you will, projected for the future. If we want to spend more than that in the first year or two, this is our opportunity to start saving now. It doesn't mean we'll never implement, it just puts more opportunity in our hands. So that's my point of view. Again, sorry, Bonnie, breaking the rule of not stating, but I am one of the decision makers, so if you will, or I could be. Who else wants to, we've heard from Budget and Finance. Director Becknell, I assume that you're of the same opinion, that you're in support of adding something to the amount.
Absolutely. And again, we went through various models with Budget and Finance. Thank you, Cliff, for being so patient. And we determined that this was the better outcome to start our savings plan rather than delaying the irrigation projects on golf courses, because we know that was going to cost an extra $3 million. So that was almost defeating the purpose of trying to start the savings plan. So this is the correct budget.
And again, quick show of hands, who believes that we should start saving something next year so that we can get to the positives before we, okay. Excellent. So who would, Director Williams, would you like to start? Would you, anything that you wanted to explain about why you support it? You just support? Thank you. Director Turner.
Yes. I am in favor of this, but it does make me uneasy. It is a big jump in the dues and so on. So it does make me uneasy, but because if we put this in place, we start collecting the money over the next 12 months, we get the strategic plan in the fall, we decide what the priorities are. Should it turn out that the priorities actually only cost 2 million and not 6, then we don't do this the next financial year. We don't do it. We give everybody gets a $20 cut. And I think we should also, say to our residents as well and emphasize to our residents, it's $20 a year for 5 years. That's $100 each. And for that $100 each, we could have up to $6 million worth of new development and improvements, according to the priorities that we've heard from the residents themselves. So it's something to help the residents who've told us they want this. It's the way that we can provide it to those residents who told us that they want this. So we'll be taking action on behalf of the residents.
I think the important things to emphasize that you said amongst them is its potential. The governing board vote this year is for 1 year only. And for many of the decisions, not all, but for many of the decisions that the governing board is making this year, there's no commitment to continuing that, to extending it. Again, if the governing board sees that those funds are not, we don't need to raise as many funds, there's no need to continue. The governing board somehow sees that there's a need to raise more funds, they'll have to take that action as well. But it's a start, as is, just to recognize Cliff and team did a great job of helping us imagine scenarios. But to be really honest, the $15 million, I think, was what we were saying. At some point, we're going to need, we think we'd want to have about $15 million to spend collectively over 5 years. Some of our neighbors around us are spending a lot more than that in 1 year for doing some projects around their communities. And again, just realize this could be the start. That $15 million might be too low. We don't know. It might be more, it might be less. The governing board will have more data in its hands in the fall. So it's potential, it's not a commitment, it's 1 year. Right. Director Schlemmer?
Thank you, President Novello. I do want to start with a clarification comment. I want to make sure that people understand this. When we say $20 for 5 years, if we were to, and I'm going to use the proposal, we have a $22 increase in the operating side of this budget, and we're now recommending a $20 increase in the dues for a total increase this year of 42. If next year we decide we want to maintain the $20 contribution to the capital budget, we're not adding another 20. We maintain the 20 that's already been put in. I just want to make sure people don't realize we're not saying 20 and then 20 more and then 20 more and then 20 more. The baseline becomes X. If we had no operating increase next year and we wanted to maintain the capital funding, there would be no increase. If next year we need 10 extra dollars a year per person for operating or 20, the increase is 20. It's not 40, it's 20. So I just want to make sure people get that, because I could see where there's some confusion. I certainly agree with the concept that we engaged in a master planning process and we had a phenomenal level of community support. And for those of you who have gone to any of those debriefing sessions, you will have seen that. I forget the exact numbers, but it's thousands of Sun City West residents weighed in on ideas and thoughts of the future of this great community. It was so much of a response, it was almost rattling in a positive way. We also, this year, the governing board went out and toured several communities, and most of us, or maybe even all of us, I don't remember, but certainly most of us were involved in those tours. I think it might be the first time a governing board has done that, I don't know, but certainly the first time in my experience. And we came back with ideas from that about competitive advantage in the marketplace. I've ran into numerous residents out in the community, and the general comment I hear is they really encourage us. They want Sun City West to remain strong. They want Sun City West to remain highly competitive, ranked. They see the value in that. And I've asked many of them, I said, okay, but you do realize that's going to come with a cost. And they all have acknowledged that. Now, I've even tested various numbers with them, but I won't go into all of that. But the general consensus is that those who support this really realize that there is going to be a cost to that. And then even today, we had a gentleman come up here and talked about his experience back in, I think he said 2008, coming here, and the need for this community to remain competitive. If we weren't ready to start to set the funds aside, and I realize we're going to learn what those needs are, but it's kind of like, your kid's going to go to maybe college. Do you start when they're a child, or do you wait till they're a senior in high school to start to fund that college commitment, or your daughter's marriage, or whatever the case may be? I think it's incumbent upon us to do the prudent thing and start to set money aside to be able to react to what our community, not a bunch of consultants, but the feedback our community gave us about where they see this community going in the future. I support this proposal. I'm willing to work with my colleagues on the board of what the right number is. I support as proposed, but I am willing to hear other alternatives, but I think we need to do something. Thank you.
So I know there have been, thank you, Ellen. And I think you had your hand up as well. Anything you wanted to add that's new, Director Forsey?
Let me ask you, one person had written in.
No, this is your comments. I'm sorry. We're looking first for director comments.
I personally, no
Okay.
comment.
Thank you. I'm sorry about that. So I know that we've had, so those that would favor adding something now have spoken. And I know we've had considerable discussions as well about waiting until we get the master plan results. Anything you guys, Director Grom, Director Piaskowski, I know you've spoken in the past, but we're here. Anything that you wanted to add about your views for when and how we start saving for the master plan?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not saying I'm against the $20, but I'm looking at this clearly in just what Director Schlemmer said. This is actually a special assessment, is it not? It is not supporting the operating budget. It is
It's
not.
additional money, you're right, and it's
I mean,
an alternative.
And
It's an alternative spread out over 5 years. You're
well,
correct.
the fact that it's only $20, don't mislead people. The fact that a special assessment must be approved by the majority vote of the membership. Granted, it's only $20. The fact is, we are tacking on an additional $20 for a specific project or program, the master plan, and I think then we should deal with this as a special assessment, and it's not part of the operating assessment.
What do you feel about the APF increase? As I hear what you're saying about that. I'm not. We'll put that aside for a moment, right? But for the APF increase that's included in here, would that be something that therefore it's not a special assessment? It's the asset preservation fee. Is that therefore something you do support?
APF fees don't come out of our residents' pocket.
And thanks for that. Now, as for the language around special assessment, I know we've talked a little bit, or I've heard us allude to some of this in the past. I know an actual special assessment, to your point, Cliff. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you're up for it. In the past, when Budget and Finance specifically asked, why don't we do the special assessment and so on and so forth, I think you had looked into some of this and the bylaw language. If you hadn't, that's fine. But what is in your viewpoint, in your recommendation, why would you recommend this? Because we're all aware that the bylaws require a community vote for a special assessment.
Yeah, so the funds are for the reserve fund, which fund new capital and repair and replacement. They're being attached to items that are approved on an annual basis by the governing board, member dues and APF fees. So these do not require a special vote because of that.
A special assessment requires, I'm trying to remember I'm quite confident Director Grom has this in front of him, but when we would formulate a vote, wouldn't we require very specific project or projects for that special assessment? Am I correct?
You asking me? Sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry, Cliff.
That's
if
okay.
I'm looking at the table, but for either of you, really. But I'll ask you first, Cliff, and Director Grom, if you have it. Looks like you have it in front of you. So
Yeah, because of the answer to the question is this a special assessment that should follow the rules and the bylaws regarding special assessments? It's not simply because we're attaching it to the fees that are approved by the governing board. Period. Now, semantically, if you want to say that, well, technically it's special, but the fact that it's dues and APF fees, they're voted on by the governing board. Therefore, it's not a special assessment. If we were to go to a special assessment, part of the idea of selling a special assessment, yes, is you would present everything that special assessment was for, whatever that may be.
okay.
Yeah.
And those are, Director Grom, a special assessment is an option available. It takes a while to raise the money and so on and so forth, but that is an option that is available to the governing board in terms of how to pay for this. That was not what Budget and Finance considered it. That wasn't what they recommended. Doesn't mean that it's not available, right? Anything else or anything you wanted to add, Director Piaskowski?
So that additional dues, would it just show us as an increase of $42 for dues on our statements?
Yes.
Yes. So our residents are gonna freak out. $42. We have to put in annual dues of 22 and then additional dues for our master plan, because they will be like, what's going on here? That's just my whole thing. 2 line items on your statement. I'm not saying I'm approving the $22, and I'm not saying I'm approving the $20. But the other thing too is that I know we've never had a special assessment in all of the 45 years that we've been here. Would it not be beneficial for us to find out what we are going to do with the master plan? We get the results in September, October, come out with a long-range goal plan, and then go for a vote of $100 for special assessment. Let the people, the residents, pay that $100 upfront if they want to, if they can afford to, which means that you would just have more money. And then the people that need it every year, they could just add it as the special assessment of $20. I don't know how that works. But I think we'd be better off. And then we know that we've passed it. We know we've got the funds. We know we've got everything that we need if we're gonna do the master plan. And it's a long-range goal, folks. I mean, this is what we're here for, right? Long-range planning.
And one of the things, thanks Director Pyskowski, one of the things that the governing board will do explicitly with the master plan findings, the governing board will, and correct me if I'm wrong on the nomenclature, Stephen, but the governing board will then revise and create strategic priorities for the coming 1 to 3 years. That you're going to use the master plan, and to your point, that would be the point where you will actually, when I say you, the governing board will be articulating the specifics of what will be actioned and in what order, the priorities and using the master plan as input. So you're right, you will absolutely, as a governing board, the governing board will go out and articulate, these are the outcomes, this is where we're starting, these are the priorities, and here's how we're going to pay for it. At that point, you'll have several options, right? I don't know what those options will be. It's unlikely to be simply $100. It could be more, it could be less, depending on what you decide at that point. You know, we were talking about the fact that this is, as currently stated, it's 1 year of what could be 5 years, right? It could be 100, it could be more, it could be less. It could also, again, when you're offering opportunities for folks to pay over time, it might be a little bit more than $20 a year if it's a $100 value. That's something that, again, the governing board would, in the scenario that you're articulating, the governing board would decide that next year. If the governing board chooses now to wait on saving some of that money, that's
Okay,
how
so,
it goes,
the
right?
other thing is, every year, guys, we change 3 directors. So we cannot make sure that the next 5 years, we need 6 people to vote on that. So if we wait
right.
and come up with a long-range goal, I think our residents would understand that better, and see what we're going to do with it, have a vote on it, see what they say, and go from there. Because then we know at least we've got that $100 for the people that are coming in. And the people that are coming in, I don't know how you can do it, but that APF would have to be, just, by the way, you didn't catch, I don't know if you can do that, charge them for past dues that they weren't here for. But you know what I'm trying to say? I just think that we have to come up with a long-range goal, and we really can't do that until we see what our results of our master plan is. And I'm hoping the master plan comes out with what we want in the sense of for our community, but I also hope that they present to us the demographics of what they think or who they think are coming into our community, what those demographics are going to look like, and what their ideas are of having fun, and let us know what the other communities around. We're number 6, so the other top 5 have to be doing something in long-range planning. So hopefully they're going to also come back with some of those ideas, saying, hey, this is a guy, they're doing whatever. And not saying that we have to follow boats, we don't, but the fact is that we can then say, okay, if they're doing that, we should maybe think about this because their demographics. I think we need to know what our long-range goal is.
Governing
Before
board
we
will
start the
decide,
$20.
the governing board will decide, right, and you're right, that's your point of view, right? The governing board will decide on what those long-range goals will be. I've heard on all the Barry Dunn, that's our consultant for the master plan, folks. So the master plan consulting team has said that those are absolutely things that the governing board can expect to see. They're putting together, they're still assembling it because it's very hard, but they're putting together a bit of a think tank of some of the leading 55-plus or active adult communities around the country to get some input on those things that are important. These are things that they're endeavoring to do. So some pieces of that we can expect as a governing board to see coming out. Director Piaskowski, I put you on the spot. If we were not, if we did put aside this notion of an additional dues, if we did decide to do that as a board, how would you feel about supporting the additional APF fee on top of what has already been projected for operational support? That alone and not a dues increase.
Yeah, like Rudy said, our residents really don't pay the APF. I do think that if we do, it's just a lot of money. And I think eventually what's going to happen is when people go to sell a home, that's going to be negotiable between the buyer and the seller. So it will maybe sometimes affect our residents selling their home. $300 is a lot in 1 year. And I know that, Cliff made the comment, and I know he took it back, that we will be the highest APF out there. The Grand is not that much higher. I mean, the Grand's only at 5, I think. There was, that slide showed 5. And that would put us at 56?
It would put
Yeah,
us at
so that's $600. I mean, we had a resident here before that said that they had friends that looked at here and the Grand, and they chose the Grand, and just because of the look. We will never, ever be able to be like the Grand or Festival or Verado, because that is not what our buildings allow us to be. Okay, what we can do is we can entice new residents to come here with the opportunities we give them, which is clubs and other activities.
Yeah, none of those, we toured just a few, but none of those communities we toured, as beautiful as they are, come anywhere close to what we offer from an amenities, right? I do agree with you there. So our facilities may be older, but we have so much more and fabulous staff and wonderful amenities and so forth. We got that.
I mean,
So-
we have good bones, right? We have kept our buildings up to par for the last 45 years. So we have really good bones. So that's the other thing that we have to really make sure that we keep.
Mhm. Thanks for that, and really appreciate it. And again, I can't remember which of you smart people had said it. It's important to state what we think is important and recognize that in order to make sure that we have at least 6 of us who are in agreement with whatever we go forward on, we might be making some compromise on what we believe is the right way forward, but really appreciate you guys articulating for yourselves and for the community where we stand before we make the decision. And so I'll open it now to resident comments on the master plan funding portion of the question. If there are anything come in on that topic online or?
Not on the master plan, but a couple that go back to the initial.
Okay, we'll come back to
Discussion.
that. Thank you so much, and keep me honest. Anyone in the room want to mention anything about master plan funding that we've been discussing? Okay, so seeing none in the room and hearing none yet online, our goal on the 21st is to be able to come up with a scenario. So if I understand it, if I hear you correctly, directors, we have the existing budget and finance recommended scenario for the master plan portion, which would be the, on top of dues increase, we add $20 more and add to the dues and $300 to APF. The other option that we could consider on the 21st would be APF increase only. Those are the scenarios that I'm hearing. Am I hearing you all correctly? There might be something in the middle, but we're just trying to keep it as simple as possible so that we can have some agreements in principle, and also recognizing how hard Stephen, Cliff, and their teams have been working on all of this. We don't want to keep, but if there are additional concerns that come up between now and the 21st, let's get them out on the table so that we can think them through. I'm going to give you my assurance here that whenever we vote on this budget, although we're scheduled to do it on the 21st, no one's going to do some kind of a last-minute correction. We need to analyze the impacts of any changes that we make. So I think we've had a great discussion on it, and I think we'll be ready to come to a vote and perhaps, make some compromises along the way. So that's what's coming up on the 21st. And with that, unless there are any other comments, we're going to go on to 3.03. So I'm going to move on to 3.03, directors. Again, the workshop meetings are all about preparing for our votes coming up. We've had a year-long discussion on what we're going to do to rewrite or potentially rewrite our policies so that they're better aligned, they're not duplicative, making sure that they're in order and so forth. We have some quotes and price quotes, but we haven't actually finished our discussion on that. So we don't have time for a discussion today, but what I'm trying to figure out is, are we prepared to take that to a vote one way or the other? Are we prepared to move forward on a vote for the policy end-to-end review? Or do we need discussion time? Can we move that forward to a vote then? So that'll be on the agenda with a recap, by the way. We'll add back the presentations and figures and so forth, and we'll put that to a vote. If we decide on May 21st that we need more time, we can always do this in June, but I'd rather do it while we're all present and accounted for, rather than doing it in June when the year is starting to wind down. So thank you for that. We'll move on now to board director comments, if there are any. We've had a lot of commentary today, so we'll start with you, Director Turner. Any further comments?
No further comments.
Director Schlemmer?
I just very quickly want to also acknowledge the work of the Budget and Finance Committee. These are community volunteers. Of all our committees, they probably put in the most amount of hours, although every one of our committees plays a vital role and puts in a lot of hours. I want to thank them for all of their work on this budget proposal.
Thank you, and you're welcome. We did spend a lot of time. We did have a lot of very interesting discussions and questions. And again, I had several members of the Budget and Finance Committee here in the audience. We fully support both the operating budget and the capital budget. Thank you.
Director Forsey?
No comments. I think I'm good.
Director Paskowski? Director Gaunt?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Good one. Okay, I want to thank my fellow directors. I know Director Chatton's not here, but he has also spent countless hours on analysis and discussion. So I really want to thank you guys for that. Of course, I'm going to remind everybody that all of our committees work very hard, but we rely on them. And committee applications are open. They're due before our next meeting. So they're due by 2 p.m. on May the 15th. So come to the governing board page on our website for that application, or write to us if you need to know how to find that. Also, I don't know, Stephen, if this is in your comments, but we might be able to give a quick update on the progress of the so-called chicken bill.
Thank you, President Vellen. Yeah, so we're happy to report that the so-called chicken bill, which was the bill in the House, in the state legislature that would have required that we allow chickens in the community, as well as any other planned community would be required, has failed. And, I really appreciate the work that was put into it by the lobbyist firm, and I appreciate the fact that the board had the foresight to really, move forward with that, engaging that firm, because that's already a win for us. And so I'm pleased to see that, and they continue to engage with the legislators and working on other bills, but that was one of the main ones. And I know that there's also the other one that's kind of a moot point now, which is one related to executive sessions and how those are handled. But with the new recent ruling that's come down, I imagine that's going to probably pass, because it's going to make it in line with the recent court ruling. But again, I think that the fact that they were able to work through that chicken bill, and again, some may consider that to be not significant. I consider it significant. I've seen these in my past experience where cities and towns were required to allow them, and the impact that it causes. Some people like them, some think they're great, but I can tell you that from my experience, they do present a challenge. In addition to the chicken part of it, though, there was even beyond that. It was actually even allowing, I can't remember how it was worded, but basically all types of animals. In other words, if you had a pig, yeah, thank you, a pig, or even the miniature horses, things like that. I mean, any type of, that was basically eliminating any kind of size and things like that. And the only thing that stuck in there, which really is irrelevant, was something that dealing with this, not being able to require, or not allowing planned communities to control size and shape of dogs, which we don't do that anyway. So, so my point is, yes, thank you for bringing that up, President Novella. That's a good point, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that.
Any other comments, though?
I do not. I just want to thank the board. I understand and appreciate everyone's input on the budget. I really do value the review of it, and appreciate the comments and the work that's going into this. So I'm looking forward to we can move this forward and start the fiscal year. Thank you.
Home stretch. Oh, I'm sorry. You go ahead, Director Grum.
Thank you, Mr. Arnaud. I'm glad to hear that. Now the issue becomes, we've got, I think Mr. Riley says we've got some 200 different declarations out there. Do we have adequate wording in those declarations that allows us to put a policy in place? Because we do not currently have a policy limiting this type of animal life in our yards. I happen to live in the annex area, and there's some wording in there about fowls and livestock. That's in my declaration, but at the governing board level, we don't have a policy that states this, that I know of.
I don't think we need one because it's in the law, but that we.
No, that's the purpose of this legislation. It gives us the authority to prohibit this. So we have to create a policy prohibiting it. It just doesn't say it's prohibited. We have to create policy.
I could be wrong, but I thought our CCNRs already don't allow for them. I'm pretty sure that they do not allow.
The overall master.
Well, that's my question, though. We have about 200 different sets of CCNRs. Do we know those words are in those 200 sets?
Well, those individual separate associations would need to take whatever action, but I'm talking about our overall CCNRs. Now, you're right, there are some that maybe don't have that in there. I don't know. But I believe ours cover the fact that you can't have any foul right now.
Right.
Well, we can certainly, I'll have to circle back on to give you more information on that, because I don't have all the specifics yet.
And I think it's a valid, thank you.
Yeah.
So anything else from directors before we open it up to residents? We did have a couple of online comments that came in a while ago that I think we were waiting for, and then we'll get to our in-person comments.
This is from Gary Bach, 135435. I was confused by Director Grum's comments on filling positions causing an excess savings in the budget, but then seeming to say that we need to pay employees in some positions more to retain them. Then if, as he said, we had all the positions filled, there would be no excess. If we raised some wages to keep employees, and if all those employees stayed, would we not have to increase dues to cover the increase? That would be Director Grom.
I'm thinking for Director Grom, apparently that's the question.
I mean, in theory, yes, if we raised some salaries, it would increase our expenses, and we would have to raise dues. But my point was, we currently, as Mr. Erno has said, because of our difficulty, we don't have people in those positions, so the money is not being spent. That's the bottom line.
So as I recall, the challenge before the association is to better fill those positions in some way, maybe salary, maybe in other ways, but so fair point, and thank you, as always, Mr. Bach, for your question. Any others?
This also is from Gary Bach. Just to comment on something I read in the news yesterday and wanted to make operations and the governing board aware of. Some cities or states are talking about taxing people with 2 homes, meaning if a home is not occupied for about more than 6 months a year, you could be taxed. In San Francisco, they're talking about $8,000 to $10,000. This could have a huge impact on Sun City West residents.
Thanks for your comment. There isn't anything we can do that's actionable.
And then this one is to the IT person. This is from Mary Gannett. Look into the character limit on these comments. When questions are split into sections, some read out of order and some parts skipped. The whole point is lost.
Very fair point. Thank you. And
Oh, I've got another one.
oh, you have another one, but is it more on the same topic or? Okay.
It's still Mary Gannett. With my comments not being read in order and some skipped, it sounded like I had sour grapes, and that's not the case. I was simply pointing out that it wasn't true about the 5-year mark.
Thank you, and thanks for the clarification. And I'm glad that we were able to get that in there. Oh, there's more?
She has more.
Sorry. I'll stop talking. Keep going, Mary.
Being the 5-year mark being acknowledged, and my point was that you're doing a disservice to the hourly people. Some hourly people do obviously need to be paid more in order to fill the golf main positions, etc.
Finito? Okay. So I think you've mentioned, you might have alluded to that, but thank you for clarifying. Is there anything else that you wanted to comment on before I got to the character limit and such?
Oh, that's the one I actually was going to comment
Oh,
on.
okay.
It was the fact that we had no control over that. That's a YouTube thing.
It
so.
is a YouTube thing, but
But the other ones, yes, I feel like I've already addressed that, so I'm good.
But as for the entire experience of how residents participate online and comment and so forth, we are currently using YouTube, as I know Mary and other residents are aware, which limits us to an extent. It doesn't mean we cannot improve. We recognize that we have to do something more and have a better solution. So at this point, we're working with what we have. We recognize the limitations, and I really do regret that some of your comments came in out of order. I'm glad that you were able to clarify. But just know, this is not, it's what we have right now. None of us think that it's the best solution, and IT is obviously focused on some of the other items within their overall view, meaning the portal implementation and such. Going forward, though, there's an opportunity to improve that, and it's certainly in the IT director's purview. So thanks for the comment. And now, for the time being, we'll go in-house to the in-room comments first. We do have a resident. It's not unusual that he's here to speak to us, but we have a resident.
I'm gonna throw you a curve. I'm not going to represent ARC, but I do have tickets in the back for the raffle car. This is a plug for PORA. I'm one of the directors of the PORA organization. It's a Property Owners and Residents Association. And we do have an opening in our directors. And it was announced at our annual meeting, our monthly meeting this month. So if you're interested in putting in an application to be part of the directors of the PORA, and we're looking for volunteers to fill the committees. We have a number of committees we need to fill. So we're looking forward to working with those residents that are interested in this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you to Pora on our behalf. Any other comments online? Great. I'm sorry, that did not come across well. Thank you for all of those comments. We really appreciate them all. I'm glad that we seem to have addressed them.
Excuse me, we do have one. It says, this is from, well, they didn't put a name. Is the water clear at R.H. Johnson Outdoor Pool yet? Just asking. It's only been 5 years.
I didn't look at it closely, but Stephen, do you want to address that one?
Yeah, the answer is yes, and the water continues to be clear on a regular basis. And I know we've talked about this before. We monitor the water daily, not only through an automated system, but including staff directly testing the water to make sure that it's at the appropriate levels.
I believe it was at one of our previous meetings where we asked about certifications as well for the team that maintains that. And every one of our team that maintains the pool, they're certified pool operators. So they do have that certification to ensure that we're maintaining water clarity to the best of our ability. Thanks for asking. So with that being said, the time is 11:25, and our next workshop meeting will be June 12th, but please come and attend the governing board's regular meeting on May 21st. That will be the meeting where we actually review and approve our budget for the coming fiscal year. So we will see you hopefully on May the 21st at 9 a.m. here, and our workshop meeting will be June the 12th, 2026, also here. Time's 11:26. This meeting is adjourned.